This is the Living in Clarity podcast. My name is Brandon Fisher. This is Coach Ratner, and today we have a special guest. We'll be talking about dating.
Aleeza Ben Shalom. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I don't know if you remember, we met like 6-7 years ago back in America, and I was impressed with you then. And of course, we moved to Israel. You moved to Israel, and now you're here, and you're very popular in the dating world. And I want to talk to you about. You have 2 books out. One's called Get Real, Get Married. And the other's called Virtual Dating. If you're watching it, you can see the books on the screen. But tell me, how did you get involved in dating and marriage? How did you get involved in all this?
I think I started way back, like with summer camp and my brother. Like, do you want to go to the dance with my girlfriend? She's cute. Her name's Michelle.
Yeah.
She's like 2 years older than you, but that's okay.
Yeah. There's a pleasure to it, isn't there?
There's a certain pleasure in bringing people together. Also, just seeing people, understanding people, knowing them. It comes very intuitively to me. And so it just, like, things make sense and then they click. Right. And when it clicks, it's like, how could you not say something? You know, how could you not set people up? How could you not bring them together?
Right. Does this come from, is your pleasure just teaching people how to date, how to stay married, or is it just really setting 2 people up?
My pleasure is more in the process. So setting people up, anybody can do. Even like a 3-year-old child can just stick 2 people together, like, and all of a sudden they can meet.
So like my mother-in-law, she's like, before my wife was married to me, she was like, and she met a Jewish guy. Said, "Oh, my daughter's Jewish. Do you want to get together?" Like, it was just 2 people that happen to be Jewish, right?
Right.
So
it's much more than that.
It's more than that.
It's so much more than that. And it's what you were saying, which is not just putting 2 people together, but how do you stay together for a lifetime? Because getting married, although everybody thinks that's really the hard part, staying married is the actual hard part. Anybody can get married.
That's what I teach about.
But the divorce rate is over 50%. 65 now. It's very high. If you get divorced a second time, it's higher. If you're divorced a third time, forget it. It's at 85%. If you try to get married again, it's very difficult. So you have to teach how to stay married before you even get married. And that all comes like in the dating coaching process. It's like packaged very sweetly so that you don't have to, imagine like, oh, well, I don't need to know how to stay married. I need to find my person first. Let me do that, and then I'll work on the next steps. And for me, it's all part of the same step. It's one process.
So I always say in my classes, like, 60% in a divorce rate. But of the marriages that are left, how many of them are happy?
Right.
And you look at that stat, it's so bad. It's like less than 1 in 5.
Right.
And if you're going to go out and date someone and get married, and you have less than a 1 in 5 chance of having a happy marriage, why would you do it?
Why bother getting married?
Right. Because they don't have the wisdom that you're teaching. And that's the reason. Everyone goes to, like, if you're going to become a CPA, you got to go to college, you're going to get a driver's license, get a study for 6 months. You get married, there's no test you have to take.
Yeah, same thing for having kids.
I know. You go to the hospital, they hand you a baby. All you have to have is a car seat. Here's your baby. Where's the instruction manual? It doesn't come with anything, right?
Car seat and a mazel tov, and you're good to go.
You are speaking, I'm going to tell you, you are speaking my language.
Yeah.
It's like someone that tries to get into the NBA or the NFL, and they get in, and like, I made it. I got there. I got married. I'm there. That's when the hard work starts.
Well, it's the beginning of the journey, not the end. So everybody just thinks the hardest part is finding your person.
Right.
And it is a very difficult thing, right? As difficult as splitting the sea. Everybody has all different analogies. But it's harder to know how to stay married, harder to know how to hold a relationship together, harder to know, when we hit our down, how do we pick ourselves back up?
Right. So what are some of your tips for marriage for people to stay married?
Learn conflict resolution and not like the regular skills, the things between you and your partner. So some people learn generic advice. I tried this in the beginning of my marriage also, and people would give me advice and I would try it, and I was like, well, that didn't work with my husband. Right. I'm like, well, he's not the 80% that it works on. Right. He's the 20%. I said, but what's the advice for the 20%? They're like, oh, I don't know. So you have to figure out your partner.
It's nuanced.
Your dynamic, and what's really going to work for your relationship. And also, I'm really good at spotting patterns. So when you see a pattern in your relationship, so for me now, it's like, oh, it's that thing again. Okay, so you get upset, I'll get upset. Okay, you'll say, and then the kids, and then we'll go to sleep and wake up. Okay, so by tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up and you're going to say, how are you? Good morning, and everything's fine. You're going to pretend like it didn't even happen, not because you're pretending, because you really actually forgot. Yeah. I'm not really going to forget because I don't forget. And then we're just going to move on, or I could dig in again. Okay, so that's a pattern. Okay, so you know what? Either I'll solve it or I won't dig in and we can just forget it and move on and like go to the next thing. Like I think it's Gottman who says this, you don't always have to solve every problem. Some things can exist, you can move through it, and like that's it, we just move on. You're gonna find a new problem to have anyway, and just learn how to have peace in the home. How do you have shalom bayit? How do you bring people together consistently? It's finding your person over and over and over again, and choosing to be married and stay married over and over and over again. Because divorce happens when people choose to no longer choose their partner. They're just like, you're good. I just decided I'm not in love with you. I don't feel it anymore. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to build it. I don't really care. I think I can find happiness and love elsewhere easier. I'm just going to move on.
They're going to switch from one problem to a different problem.
You take 50% of the problem with you.
Right.
It's you.
and then they go see a marriage counselor, and a good marriage counselor is going to say, do you really want to stay married? Because they're all going to say yes, but really sometimes they don't want to. And they're seeing the marriage counselor just so they say, we saw a marriage counselor and it didn't work.
Right, and there are many marriages that don't belong together. There are people that have constitutional differences that somehow were forced to come together for some reason. It wasn't really free will, and they don't have the skills and they don't have the desire. Right. And when you don't have those two things, you're never going to build something, and life happens. We have divorce in the world for a reason, so I don't want to poo-poo that for anybody.
Divorce
but just,
is needed. It's needed.
Right,
it doesn't need to be 60%.
Correct. It's the percentage that's too high, and that we don't have the skills to stay married. It's not in the world enough. We're not seeing it enough in the world. We do have the wisdom. It's not being accessed enough, and it's not like sold on every corner, free wisdom, here it is.
People think they know what they're doing. Everyone thinks they know, everyone's like, oh, I'm getting married, we're in love, we're going to be in love forever, and they think it's going to last forever, and why doesn't it? Which is amazing. The only time they go see a marriage coach or a counselor is when they're in trouble. No one's seeing it before they get married. Right. It really needs to be
how to go from good to great instead of from problem to good.
Yeah, I'm not really good at fixing the problems, but I feel like I can get you to avoid the problems. Right? And I really believe that everyone getting married should take like you're working on a series, right? How do people find you? Like how do you have a
website? Right now you can find me at marriagemindedmentor.com. Yeah, it's a mouthful. marriagemindedmentor.com.
Right.
Has all of our information, our programs, our courses, our coaching.
So you have courses.
I have things on soulmate clarity, right?
Right?
How do you know if this is the one? Which is the question of the hour, right? Like I've dated hundreds of people. I've had people tell me I've dated over 200 people. None of them are the one.
Right.
I said, okay, so how are you going to know when it's the one? They're like, I don't know. That's why I'm here to talk to you.
I have a question. Is there only one?
No.
Sorry.
So you see,
I'm very, very.
Same
there's
page.
Many important. I believe the person you married 22 is different than 24, 26, 28. It changes all the time.
I don't know that there's an infinite number. Like there are infinite people in the world, and at any time you get under the chuppah, we get married, I choose you, I could choose a million yous. How many people are really going to be aligned with your values, aligned with your personality, aligned with who you are and what you want to be in the world? To me, there's probably like 10 really good choices, and like 5 that you're going to really be excited about, and 2 that you're going to really want that might not want you back. Like it goes 2 ways. But there's not only one. People get divorced and remarried, or lose a spouse and they get remarried. So you can only have one at a time. That's the rule. But yes, there are more than one in the world.
And then once you do choose that one, you're under the chuppah.
Yeah.
Then hopefully it remains to be the one. How do you turn that relationship from good to great, as you mentioned?
Right. So part of that is re-choosing your person every time. So every time we encounter a problem, a challenge, an issue, we're going from, our low to how are we going to resolve this and how are we going to go up from here. Sometimes we problem solve. Sometimes we just let it kind of lay there and we just move on from it. And we're just looking for solutions. We have a relationship. We have something we want. We constantly have to remind ourselves, why did I get into this? What is the good?
Definition of love.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I give a definition of love, and that's basically focusing on why you got married in the first place.
Right. Well, and some people, I don't like that. I like that for some people, but for my clients that question getting married and they kind of got kicked down the aisle, and it still was the right decision for them.
Yeah.
They know why they did it, but it doesn't feel like love. They never felt like that.
Right.
So it's more about, what do I value about us being together? What do I value about the couplehood? What do I value about what we can do with our lives from where we are today and where we're heading? And hey, we're going in this path, and I thought you were following me, and now all of a sudden you're going here and I'm going here. And how do we bring ourselves back together so that we're heading in the same direction? Maybe we could be in different cars, going at different speeds, but we're going to land at the same spot eventually. And how do we keep ourselves in alignment enough that we have freedom to be me and freedom to be we?
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great line.
Freedom to be me and freedom to be we. That's awesome.
I just came out with that.
I went. That's new?
That's new. That's a new one. You can write.
I got it done.
That's one of my quotables now. We have to save that.
I have lots of quotes too.
Okay, so I'm wondering, how has Jewish dating evolved since you wrote your first book in 2012?
2013, yeah.
2013 to now. How has the dating world stayed the same? How has
Positive
the
evolved.
perspective changed? And then again, COVID was such an
Yes.
evolutionary event in so many aspects of our life. How has dating again evolved since then?
So my first book that I wrote, I put in kind of like universal Jewish wisdom, which I think lasts the test of time, right? And all ages, all stages, all backgrounds. My goal was, if I never write another book, could I put at least, all the wisdom that I had at that moment into one book? And that's what it is. It's a book that still continues to sell. My clients continue to use, and my network. And it's like, people do come up to me and they quote me on different things. They're like, oh, I did that thing, the due date. I wrote out my timeline and my whole thing. And I'm like, oh, good. Well, what is it? And they're like, well, and they start speaking my language. COVID itself was a game changer. When singles went into lockdown, most of them on their own. Some of them moved back home to be with family. Some moved in with friends. Some, depending on where their level was, moved in with boyfriends or girlfriends. And everybody panicked. And everybody said, I don't want to be alone. Like, it was this really big wake-up call of, I don't want to die alone. I'd like to have a partner. And now has to be my moment, because there are no singles events happening. Everything that I've wanted to do in my life has just been canceled. And I don't even get to see my friends. I don't get to see my coworkers. Forget about dating. There is nothing happening in my life. And hey, if I had a partner, at least I'd be in lockdown with somebody. And for some couples, it was a huge blessing. I had one client, she moved out to California. She went to visit her boyfriend in California and ended up, deciding to get engaged and get married, and wrapped up her apartment and disappeared from New York, and that was it. And
Wow.
and she totally shifted her life, and that was not their timeline. Her due date, her timeline for dating, engagement, wedding was a much longer timeline than that, and COVID sped that up. And for other people, they said, oh my gosh, I've got to figure out social distance dating, and how does this work? So the second book that I wrote, called Virtual Dating, completely addresses, how do you build a relationship in a socially distanced world? I am so far apart. It's not just long distance dating. Long distance dating is, oh, we could have a phone date, we have a video date, and then you come see me or I come see you. Virtual dating is, I have no idea when I'm going to see you, right? And when I do see you in person, I'm going to be sitting 6 feet apart with a mask on, and you still can't even see my smile. Unless I smile and you actually see my eyes are smiling,
Yeah.
you will not.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But people are telling me, Aleeza, I don't even know what their teeth look like. I've never seen their smile, and they won't take a mask off, and we're indoors, we're outdoors, we're whatever. We can't even see each other. We are so physically and emotionally distanced. How does this work? How can you even build something? So that's what I address in the second book, and it's really different. And right now we're coming out of that, but we keep going in and out, in and out. So I work internationally, so different countries have been on lockdown in different ways. So I had somebody in New York, and she was trying to see somebody in South Africa, and it was a whole thing, and a 17 hours, and then a later, and then it got canceled, and then and she's like, Aleeza, I don't even know what to do. I'm done. And I was like, listen, this is called a technical failure.
Yeah.
This is not a relationship failure. Everything's fine. You are just having a problem because of the way life is treating you. Decompress. Now let's go back into your relationship, and don't blow this. Do not ruin this relationship. So there were a lot of things that we had to deal with, and then we had Canada, whose borders were closed, and at one point Canadians could get out, but Americans couldn't get in.
I
or
spent
anybody.
a night in the airport, trying to visit a
Right? And you
can't
online girlfriend at the time. Yeah.
And you can't get in. So they could get out. So it's okay, guy, girl, we don't care. Whoever can get out of the country goes to visit the person who can't get in.
Right.
And that's and we're playing by new rules. Well, who should pay for the flight? If the guy is normally going to fly, now should the girl pay for
I know.
Okay? But it's a whole new rule book, and everything changes. So today it was one thing, and tomorrow, poof, okay, new rules. And all of a sudden, everything I knew about yesterday is not true, and you have to figure it out again. So it was very unsettling for people, but it did, specifically with the men, by the way, I noticed most of my male clients were like, that's it, I'm done. I just want to get serious. I'm also, by the way, tired of wasting my time, so why don't you tell me how to do it faster and better, and I'll get out of my own way.
Right.
And they became more marriage-minded, and they were more intense about the dating relationship process.
Do you think that's the issue, why it's hard for women? I mean, I think there's, in the observant world, there's a shidduch crisis where there's not enough men for the women. is that because men are just not marriage minded, and a lot of them are like, selfish and just worry about making money and not. What is the issue with men? Because I meet a lot of men, and I mean, no offense to them, a lot of them stink. I mean, like, it's hard to find good men.
Okay, so
I mean,
I don't like
not. I mean, not you, Brandon, obviously.
solid guy and single.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think that it's on. First of all, I don't think it's only in the Jewish world. So I collaborate with matchmakers internationally who are from all different backgrounds.
Right.
So they are saying the same things that we are saying, which is why does the ratio appear to be off between men and women and making matches? And I always say that God doesn't do fuzzy math. So I don't know the answer to why it looks this way to us, but I'm pretty sure that God runs the world in a very solid way, and we just don't understand something. Maybe there was something to having, more wives to partners, but there's been a time in the world where the reverse is true, where there were more men in the world available for matchmaking and less women.
Yeah.
It just goes through cycles. Yeah. So right now this is our cycle, but we'll cycle out of it again.
Do you think the paradox of choice is having an issue with the fact
analysis paralysis?
Yeah, the people, there's so many choices now that they go at someone and they have a pimple on their nose. Oh, forget them. They're 5 pounds over. Oh, next, swipe, whatever. There's so many choices nowadays. In the old days, if someone had a decent job, was decent looking, nice, you married them. They didn't take much. But now there's so many variables and it's so easy to meet new people that people just don't want to settle down, because why settle when you have someone else better? Like, they're always looking at the next thing.
I think we don't know what's best for us. So we have so many options.
I agree with you.
Right. But the question is, do you know what's the best option for you? Because if you know, then it doesn't matter. If you're saying no, then you're saying no to the right people. And when you say yes, you'll say yes to the right person also. But look, our entire dating lives, everybody, you, me, and everybody included, is a failure. Okay? Why? Because 99% of the people we date, we are never going to marry. We are supposed to not marry them. Right. So everybody thinks that dating, I'm a dating failure. I was also a dating failure. Everybody I dated before my husband, it never worked.
I was a dating success. I got lots of dates. And won lots of dates. It took me, I didn't get married until I was 36. So is that a dating failure or dating success? I dated a long time.
But you dated all these people. Like if we take the statistics of how many people you dated, everything was a failure until you met the one.
Right.
So you had failure after failure after failure. But we all had that. That's everybody's dating story. Dating is a series of failures until you find the one, but it's a gift from God.
It was a gift from me. Thank God. I mean, I learned so much from thank God I dated wonderful women, and I learned every single one. I was well trained by the time I got to my wife, And I did learn, and the reason why maybe God put me in a situation is because I didn't grow up observant, and I learned all that, and now I'm teaching it to all my students about how to be dating in marriage and writing books too.
Well, so there's a certain blessing in a no. I'm going to give you the opposite, okay? Let's imagine all the women that you ever dated were perfect for you. Each one was better than the next. You went out with one, you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to date another one. You're like, oh, she's fabulous too. And you go with the third one, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I can't decide. Okay, 10 women later, okay, they're all spectacular. What happens? You have the same problem. You have analysis paralysis. You can't choose good from good.
Right.
It's easier to choose good from
bad.
What we perceive as bad, and not bad is just not appropriate for me. It's not bad. Yeah. It's just not the right fit for me.
Right.
But it's such a blessing in giving and getting a no, because when you say no, I can move on and I can go find my yes.
Or they say no.
Either way.
Yeah.
I mean, and people have to revisit things. So a no, there's a hard no, there's a maybe no, and there's a definitely ask them out again no. There's different versions of no. Yeah.
They say no means yes.
Yeah, this is only in terms of dating, and if you have a restraining order, it really means no.
Right. You have another book coming out, I think, right?
Yes, but I'm not.
Secret?
Yes, secret still, but yes, it's on the horizon. Please God, next year.
Okay.
How do we find out what's best for us? It says we don't know what's best for us, and unfortunately, I think it's definitely true. But how can we approach dating with knowing what's somewhat best for us and make that decision are there signs, are there questions?
So on one hand, I think we know what's best for us, meaning I know me better than anybody else. I hope that you know you, and I believe that you know you more than anybody else in the whole world.
I hope so.
Yeah. Now, do you know what's best for you, or I think you have all the wisdom in there, but pulling all of those pieces of the puzzle out of your head and then actually figuring out what that means, and then actually figuring out what that means in terms of matching yourself with a partner, that's kind of the puzzle pieces that we have to put together. I do a lot of that through coaching. So we pull out values, we pull out personality, we pull out fears, we pull out bothers, the things that irritate you about other people. Rav Noah Weinberg always spoke about it. Like, if you can't find 5 things that bother you about the other person, don't walk away, run. disappear. We're human. We're not angels. We're not marrying an angel, unless her name happens to be Angel or his name is Angel. But other than that, we're humans marrying another human, and there are things that get under our skin, and they should be bothersome. They shouldn't be a red flag. They shouldn't make us want to turn and scream and run, and we should be able to identify that also. And when we can do that, then we also know that we're not in infatuation. We know that we can have the ability to be more in love or in a healthy, growing, loving relationship.
Wow.
Do you have a definition of love?
It's so funny. We talk about this all the time. We always talk about, and I learned this, it was Rabbi David Aaron that gave this over, and talked about love as being a verb. So my husband and I, instead of saying I love you as a statement, we say I'm loving you. And from the very beginning, we've always just said that. It's just been like, I'm loving you, which means, of course, I love you. I'm loving you means I am actively working on giving, building, growing this relationship today. This is not in the past. It's not I love you. It's a statement. I made that commitment. So yeah, I love you, sweetheart. This is like, no, I love you. I don't like what you did. I don't like what you said. I don't like what's going on in our life. I love you. And we'll work through whatever stuff is going on. But I'm loving you. I'm in the process of building this relationship and this love with you and for you.
Wow, it's really a lot like what we say every morning in our prayers, that God is actively, always, constantly renewing the work of creation. We're just constantly renewing that love.
Yes, it's exactly
so what do you say to couples who have been married 20? How long have you been married for?
20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary.
We said 21.
21?
Yeah, 21.
I'm so excited.
Mazel tov. Yeah, man. So what do you say to couples that have been married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they're now, the love doesn't come so easily? Like, what are they supposed to do in order to keep that same, like when you're married for a year or two and it's easy to be in love. Like, we're in love, we're young, you're 20, your 20s. How do you keep that same passion in your 40s and 50s?
So I think humor, people have to have a sense of humor. My husband and I are just talking about, like, we need to laugh more. We need to just, not take everything so seriously, take the things seriously that need to be, and everything else we can just be more lighthearted, warm with each other, engaging. I was speaking with Rabbi Bernath, who's known as the Love Rabbi. He's in Montreal, and he talks about curiosity. When you lose curiosity, you lose your relationship. When you think, I know everything there is to know about my partner, that's it, I know them inside and out, whatever, I'm done. You stop asking questions, and you start knowing what they're thinking and knowing how they're going to behave, instead of being curious, being open to how your relationship can develop and where you can go from here. And I think when we lose that, we lose the spark and we lose the connection. And you have to chase after love. Even when you find love, you're in love, you still have to chase after love. You have to want to love, to be loved, to be lovable, to create love on a constant basis. I also have a thing, I talk about the definition of relationships. Okay, so if you read through the definition of relationships, it'll tell you some pretty horrible things, like, just related by blood, or like all sorts of cockamamie things. It tells you nothing about how to build a relationship. But if you look at the word for collaboration, it talks about, the definition of it is the act of working with someone. Hold on one second, I gotta pull it right out of my head. The act of working with someone, I'm gonna mess it up. No, but like the act of working with someone to produce or create something. So like the act of working, you have to work with someone to do what? To produce or create something. What are you going to create? I don't know. It's your relationship. You guys decide.
So you think the word instead of marriage should be collaborate?
No, I think the definition of collaborate should be the definition of a relationship.
I love that. That's
I want to redefine what is a relationship. How do we define being in a relationship? As soon as we can do that, then we have the wisdom to know all of these little things, like, I know I have to work. I know I have to work at it. No, but what does it mean to work at it? What does your specific relationship need? And it needs something different than mine needs, okay? And universally, we can tell you that relationships need, loving and giving and generosity and warmth and engagement and curiosity and listening, right? The list goes on. But what does your relationship need today, right now, in this moment? So usually what I tell people in terms of the relationship is not, is this good for me? Is this good for you? Is this good for our relationship? Not just us, but is this good for the relationship? Like, put the relationship over there and look at it and go, are my actions and the things that I'm about to do right now, and I'm about to say right now, going to take my relationship and go and bring me up a level? Or is it going to go and bring me way down, and it's going to tank our relationship. And if it's going to bring me up, great. If I can't handle bringing me up, great. Can we keep ourselves at neutral? Great. Okay, if it's going to bring me down, do I know how to pick us up from that fall? Because every couple falls, and knowing how to get up from when you fall is the key to a healthy relationship. If a couple has a problem, if it's not the problem. The problem is when a couple doesn't have a problem, because then you don't know how to solve problems. When you have a problem, you actually learn how to solve problems. So if you don't know how to solve a problem in your relationship, then you can never get out of your issues. And every couple will have relationships. If you go into it expecting not to have it. Okay, I had the Icky Marriage book. I called it the Icky Marriage book. It's not really called that. It was called, I think it was just called Marriage.
Yeah.
And it was by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin. And
he's a teacher.
Yes, and he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I love his classes and I love his work. But somebody gave us this book, and it's all about these problems in marriage. And I got this during our engagement. And I'm like, what is this? What are you training people for? This is horrible. Look at these stories. Oh my God. I was like nauseous from it. And then we got a second book, and I'm like, oh, that is a gift. I am giving that away.
I think he wrote 28 books or something.
Tons. So this book, after 2 months of marriage, I'm like, what did it say? Page 27. Yeah, okay. I'll leave that over there for my husband. I'm going to put it on the table. And like, we were reading through it because you need it, but you don't always see it in the beginning.
No, it's hard to get people to want to read a marriage book, because if they're in a great marriage, they feel like they don't need a marriage book. And if they're in a horrible marriage, they don't read it because it hurts too much. Yeah. I mean, actually, it's one of the reasons why I'm coming out with a new book next year. That I'm combining my dating and marriage book into one, because no one wants to read a marriage book. I don't think no one. I think it's hard to get in there. I think it's hard to get people to read marriage books.
Yeah, there has to be a sticky title. There's got to be something,
Right.
Like the Icky Marriage book. I think that would be a great title.
I think it's a great title.
There's
and a lot of people can relate to it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So talking about, keeping the love going in a relationship, I have an idea called sunscreen love.
Okay.
I came up with this a few months ago. The idea is that, you go to the beach. I used to go to Dewey Beach in Delaware. You put SPF 15 on, or 30, whatever, so you don't burn.
Yeah.
What happens after a few hours of playing in the waves and playing on the beach? It wears off, and you go home at night. You take a shower at 6 o'clock. You put the shower on, and you go, and you're sunburned,
Burning.
right? Because you forgot to apply the sunscreen. Reapply.
Right.
Love's the same way. If you don't constantly romance the relationship, which means turn that lust, desire, infatuation you originally had for someone, you fell in love with them, and turn that into love. It's easy when you're young and in your 20s, but in your 40s and 50s, it takes work. And that's the romance in a relationship. And if you don't romance a relationship, I'm sure you've heard of instances when a man gets divorce papers from his wife and he had no idea it was coming. I mean, it's so common. It's so common. He goes, I had no idea the relationship was.
Right. I'm good. I thought
I'm
we
good.
were
I thought we're fine. I know anything's wrong with it.
And also, why didn't you clue me in? Right. Like, I'm also willing to work on the relationship. And what happened?
Because they didn't work on the relationship.
Right.
He didn't work on that. Right. He didn't constantly apply the sunscreen to his wife.
Great
or
concept.
Wife. Yeah.
Fabulous.
I like that. And new concept we have in our house, and you can use this if you want.
Okay.
You can use sunscreen love. I love the idea. And I sing it all the time. And you can ask my wife, compliment, don't criticize. Compliment, don't criticize. Because every time you compliment someone, you are putting sunscreen on. Every time you criticize, you're wiping sunscreen off.
Right.
So by me singing it at my house has been a unbelievable game changer.
Does it work?
It works. I don't criticize anymore.
As long as it's a reminder for yourself and not passive aggressive towards anyone else.
No. It's for me. It's for myself. It's for myself.
Of course.
And I teach my kids, don't
We need
criticize.
a jingle. Can we get a jingle for that?
Well, right now it's just compliment, don't criticize. Compliment, don't criticize. I'm telling you, it's really been amazing.
I like it.
Yeah. So
I'm curious. You mentioned due date.
Yeah.
That's about timeline, pace of like expectations from when you start dating until marriage, or what does that look like?
So due date stands for dating, engagement, wedding. DEW. Okay. Dating, engagement, wedding. Due date, people think it's pregnancy.
That's what I'm thinking. Right,
No. That due date comes later.
Right.
It stands for dating, engagement, wedding, and we want to make a plan. Like, okay, when would you like to start dating? Is now good? And people are like, oh yeah, yesterday. And they're like, no, actually 2 months. I've got something going on. I got a big project. Great. Give me an ideal time when you want to start dating. Great. You start dating. Let's call it November. Good. So happy you started dating in November. When I'm going to just call it, you met your perfect person. First time out, what luck. It's so amazing. Woo! Just happened. How long would you like to date before you get engaged? And then people tell me, it could be anything. It depends how, religious or secular somebody is, right? 2
3
months,
years.
6 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I don't care what the timeline is. This is their timeline. So let's just call it, I don't know, we'll get engaged after 6 months. Okay, great. How long after that would you like to get married? I'm like, I mean, I don't know, whatever. It depends on my person. I said, okay, well, it also depends on you. So let's come up with your due date, and then we'll come up with their due date, and then we'll smush them together and see where those things align or misalign. So I've had people do it, and one wants to get engaged in 3 months, and the other one's thinking 9 months, and then marriage is coming a year later for someone, and it's coming 3 months later for another one, and it's like, woo, it's a technical failure, but it's not a relationship failure. They're just not on the same page.
What do you say to people who've been dating for a year and they still are not engaged? I mean,
it depends. So it depends on the people and it depends on the situations. Because I've seen so many things. They're like, we had one couple and both of their fathers had passed away.
Well, that's
right. No, but I'm just saying, right? Like you can throw out a generic timeline, but it's just not going to hit everybody. I believe when you start dating, secular, religious, anybody, Jewish, makes no difference. You will know within 6 months from the beginning of your dating until the 6 month mark if this is my person or not.
So you think that 6 months should be the limit so much you date before getting engaged?
No, I think that's the
approximately.
No, I think that's the limit for when you should know if this is your person. Choosing the timeline for engagement, there's different variables and reasons why people wait or don't wait. Sometimes families, it's complicated, location, it's complicated, job, there's complications. But if you don't know it's your person by 6 months, then it's, to me, well, what don't you know? You do not usually need more data than 6 months worth of data to make an informed decision of your thinking and your feeling and what's going on.
I think I put that in my book. I don't know if I put 6 months. I might have put like 3 months or something, but it's approximation. I don't know, but like you're dating for someone 3 months. Like if you're not going to marry them, if you want to marry them. Like maybe.
And look, if somebody has depression, anxiety, PTSD, if they've been through traumatic experiences, if they've had parents that are divorced or abusive, I could go through all the situations, but you hear they cannot make a decision so quickly. And the anxiety of having to make a decision it prevents them from that much more from even making a decision. So the best thing for me is to say, you don't have to get engaged at that timeline. I need you to know, is this really your person or not? You could continue to date for another 3 months. We could put off an engagement, but we're heading in that direction. You're not questioning after 6 months, is this my person? If you're still questioning, usually there's what I would call a potential deal breaker, which is going to break the deal anyway. And
eventually will.
You just haven't accepted it. And the biggest reason is, I love him or her. I love them, but it's never going to work. But how could I give that up because I love them? And those are the hardest relationships to break and to navigate.
I dealt with it recently because I teach classes here at Asia Torah, Essentials on Dating and Marriage, and I've had a lot of people come to me the last few weeks talking about they're in a relationship and they explain the relationship to me and it's not healthy at all. And the problem they have, I said, I come to conclude is that A, they don't want to hurt the other person, and B, they don't want to be alone. Right?
And C, sometimes they love them also.
No, they do love them. No, for sure. Every instance here, they love them. That's not the issue. And I tell them there's 50 people you can be in love with. That's not the problem. The problem is that this person is not good for you, right?
Right. What I tell them also is, and you can use this freely, but that you are hurting them more by keeping them in the relationship because A, you're never going to make them happy, and B, you're eventually going to reject them. And they're like, well, but maybe they'll reject me. I said, fine, you can push the limits and eventually somebody's going to reject somebody. But if you actually really love somebody and you care enough, then you will actually choose to let them go and free them up so they can find their person because you're not it. And that's what love is. Love is not that I'm afraid to do it because I'll hurt you. I'm afraid to not do it because that's going to hurt you more. It's the opposite of what they actually think.
Yeah, it's not good for them. I told them this is going to be unhealthy. And one of the girls did break up with the guy, and he was threatening to commit suicide and pestering the family. I'm like, this is not a healthy relationship. This is not the guy you want to be with.
And those are the complicated situations.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is they're afraid to be alone. I think that people don't. They get into they're comfortable. And they think they're in love. They might be in love now, but who knows? They think it's love.
It doesn't even matter about love. Right. It's really like, to me, love is a result of a healthy relationship. And it's when it lacks that healthy relationship, we just don't have anywhere to go with it. It's never going to be good for anybody.
So we have we host a lot of people for Shabbat meals, and like a lot of times people come like, I'm ready to get married. I'm like, oh, who are you looking for? Like, cute, learn, like, they don't have it. They don't
nice,
have,
a
nice
man,
okay.
good looking,
All right,
has a good
let's give all
job,
these
earns
guys-
a good living. This
Sure.
is, everybody can give you
Baseline.
the same list.
Baseline.
So I always say, tell me something different.
Yeah, so what I did is, with help of Lori Plotnick, I give her credit for this, we put together a worksheet. Brandon and I have done, we give our dating seminars. I have a worksheet that goes through different questions that ask, who do you admire in other marriages? Name the character traits that you admire. Who do you admire that's a mentor of yours about their marriage? What do you admire about it? And I got this idea from Brandon. I said, if you could live with any animal, what would it be?
For the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. And they name the animal, and I say, what characteristics do you like about that animal? And so some people pick an elephant. It's because it's strong and it's calm. And some people pick monkeys because they're fun. And like then they have the end. They have this whole list of all, and they ask what they're looking for. What their negative character traits are. What would be good to help those negative character traits. And they make a huge list, and they have to go through the top 10. And they have to know 1 through 10. And they have a new list of character traits that they're looking for that are good for them, not what they think they want. Because everyone's rich and happy, whatever, all those things.
Right, I tell people that's the baseline for everybody,
Right.
So now make me your own personal baseline.
Right, and we get lots of new concepts they never
spectacular.
thought about before. And it really, we did it for a seminar at Beer Bazaar, and it worked really, really well.
That's amazing.
Because no one has their character traits. It said a few weeks ago that when Eliezer was going to look for a wife for Isaac, that he asked that, have a woman come to me that gives me water, and then sees that my camels need water and give them water. So he was asking for kindness and for awareness, right? He finds Rivka, and then it says, Yitzhak married Rivka, and then Yitzhak loved Rivka.
Right.
Because
Through the marriage.
through the
comes
marriage,
the love.
right? Because they had the characteristics they were looking for, and he was able to love her. He'd marry her without even loving her, because she had those characteristics. You're gonna love each other.
Right. He loved the values and what she stood for,
Right.
as opposed to, and that's how you come to love somebody, because
Right.
that's what makes them up.
Well, this is what happens in the observant world, that people have their list of character traits, and they look, and people, shadchans or matchmakers, try to hook them up, set them up. Excuse me, the old language coming back. And then that's why they get married very quickly, because they're going to fall in love. Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens in matchmaking and dating in this whole process, and everybody is looking for that Eliezer sign. Like, God, please, just give me a sign. Because somebody could just tell me that this is the one. Like, I'll buy in.
Yeah.
And then you get all those signs that it's like the one, and you're like, no, I'm not so sure. And just wait. I know I said if I had the sign that I would know, but I still don't know. Can you give me a more clear sign than that sign? And you're like, no, that was it. That was the moment.
That was the sign. Is it good to look for signs?
So I wouldn't rely solely on signs, but I would also say that when there are negative signs or things that are like, every time this just doesn't work out, the text isn't going through, the phone call's not going through, the date's not going through, they canceled, I canceled, you're sick and I'm sick, and like, is it just a technical failure, or is
God trying to say something?
God trying to communicate with you? So there's a little bit of both. I think that we have to use our knowledge and our wisdom to know the difference between the two, and I think it's a little bit. It's comforting to find signs and meaning in things, but we also, like, don't throw your head out the window with everything. Like, keep your head on straight and make sure that you're also making a really logical, sound, grounded, good decision.
When I was on Birthright, a long time ago, before I was at all on any kind of Jewish journey, there was a lady who spoke to us, and she said that she put a note in the wall and asked for a sign, God, if you're real. And then she found like a note open, and it was like exactly what she needed to hear. And then she did the same thing, and the night she met her husband that she got married to, she saw a shooting star. Oh, it's so great.
That's so nice.
And thank God it worked in her case.
And everybody wants that shooting star.
Right.
The signs aren't always that clear. And if there's an absence of the sign, but you're feeling it, you're knowing it, your head, your heart, everything's aligned. So we don't always go by. Like we're Jews, we're above the stars, right? So like we don't just follow the stars, astrology and things. There's like meaning and things that can happen for us, but we're beyond that as well.
That's a good thing.
What do you think about The Bachelor and Bachelorette?
All of these new shows, so I'm just going to lump this in with them. They're sensationalistic, they're exciting to watch, they're engaging, they're more like one of those like fantasy romance novels than actual dating. If you want to take like an actual dating thing, I would talk about something like Love is Blind, where they're throwing them in these different pods. They don't see each other, and they're going to get engaged based on knowing who this other human is, having never actually seen the other person. To me, that's like, oh, this is fascinating.
No, that
like,
makes a lot of sense.
Like, wow, there's some real values here. You're really, and then you're going to go build the relationship afterwards, right? And they hold to not seeing each other, not touching, and they pick somebody to, quote, get engaged to, right? And then they send them off to their little dates and have them experience each other and see if it's really going to work. That, to me, is like real. The other is just like fantasy and fun and entertainment.
Yeah, because people focus too much on looks. Like, there's a first date bias, you know?
Yeah. We made an episode about lessons you could learn from The Bachelor dating. It's a fun episode. Is there any lessons that you can perceive from TV dating? Because a lot of people watch it.
Much.
People watch it almost religiously every week.
Yeah.
And that's what they're
Parties,
consuming.
What's great is it drives your energy up, and you are feeling like, ooh, it's like butterflies, and I don't know, do you think he's gonna, and it's a drama. Is she gonna dump him? Somebody's gonna cry. Oh, somebody's gonna punch somebody. I know it. It happened last time.
Yeah.
Like they feed off that energy, and people get a high off of it. So, what can you learn? I mean, you can definitely learn what not to do. If you want to find your person, you can almost guarantee you won't find it on the show.
Yeah.
So you should not apply, But if you want to have a good time, you could go there. If you're looking for entertainment, you could go there. If you want made up fictional things, like if that's your fantasy novel, that's what it's good for, but it's not good for
doing this concert for like just you. You're like, or the Rolling Stones on the top of a hotel in, Maui or something.
Right. It's just it gets your blood pumping, and it keeps you energized, and it keeps you moving. And it's also very produced. Like, so as much as it's reality, you realize the microphones, the cameras, like people are not actually being who they are, and somehow there is an actor within all of us that actually comes out.
Well, because
so
they
that's
all are
coming
actors. They're all everyone that goes
actors
on the show.
And actor wannabes.
Actor wannabes, because that's why they go on the show.
Right.
Yeah.
I bet that there's actors, even when we're not on the TV, that comes out on dates. How do you see through that?
Yeah, that is really difficult. You need to date them long enough. So you need to go out with somebody for a length of time so that you will see them in different scenarios. And it's great. Make sure you go out, rush hour, go in traffic, see how they,
in the rain.
I had one really difficult experience with a couple who was driving, and he said he was from New York, and I was like, that's not an excuse. They have driver's ed in New York. And I'm sitting there in the back, and I'm praying, and I'm like, okay, God, if you really wanted my prayers, you could have gotten them out of me a different way if I wasn't praying enough. And it was so difficult, and I did that on a date once also. There was somebody, and it was a crazy driving situation, and I was like, okay, God, if you let me live, you name your price. I'll just be so happy to be alive.
There's heart crazy driver. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, if a cop pulls me over, I can get out of the car. I can run. This is a good thing. Is there a cop? Let's get pulled over. So yes, it's really good to see people in very different scenarios. How do they treat the waiter? Are people opening doors and closing doors? Like the traditional gentlemen that existed in the 1950s. Are there any of them left? And what parts of them are actually here? And like the women also like, oh, so we can split the bill. No, that's a test, man. That's a test. And if you say yes, you will fail. And if they offer 6 times, then they really mean it, and you better split it, because then they're going to just think that you'll never listen to what they say. But other than 6 times, you should just keep saying, I got this one, maybe you can do the next. I got this one, maybe you can do the next. Like, there are all these little tests along the way, and you just have to date somebody for long enough and see them through different things.
How many times?
Ooh. So
I list a number.
You list a number of times. So I have something called the 5-date challenge, and the 5-date challenge has many different rules to it, but one of them is that you commit mentally. If I'm going to commit to date number 1 with you, I'm committing through 5 dates, unless it's horrible and it's a complete disaster. But I'm going to commit to 5 dates. I don't even have to think, oh, we had a nice time. That's nice. We had an okay time. Fine. I'm going to just say yes, yes, yes. And I'm going to give somebody 5 times. Then I need to be going out with them no more than 5 hours, no more than 5 days between dates, to 5 different locations, doing 5 different activities.
Well, that's good.
And hands off for clarity. You need to not touch them for 5 dates, depending on where you're holding and what your observance level is. And also, you should know their 5 strengths, and you should know their 5 weaknesses, and you should not talk to more than 5 people about your dating life. Because if you start talking to people and telling them, I went out with this one, and I don't know what I think, and maybe, and did I tell you this already? Oh, that's the classic line. As soon as you say, did I tell you this already? You have already told too many people. So don't talk to more than 5 people about your dating life. So that's all.
I guess women do that, I guess. I mean, men don't do that. 5 different people.
When they have 9 siblings, they do.
Well, yeah. I don't know if you tell your siblings. You tell your friends. I don't know
Sometimes, it depends how close they are in the relationships they have.
There's a lot of circumstances where I can see people doing that.
Yeah.
And
a guy driving high speeds or driving erratically with someone in the car.
Yes.
Is that just? Is this guy going to be able to have a good relationship? I mean, like, he's just clueless. Like, how can you do that when someone's in the car, you don't know them, you're driving erratic, they just don't know?
Does he think it's erratic?
No,
he think it's dangerous? Right, because he learned from his parents that this is how you drive, because they probably drove that way.
Right.
So that's his baseline normal. Right. But that's his baseline normal, so that's not crazy to him.
Right.
So you have to figure out, like, does he know that this is dangerous? And he's like, oh, I really, like, I've gotten 47 speeding tickets in the last 4 years, you know, like, I should work on this? Or is he like, it's not a problem. I know the police chief. Like, we got this under control. You know, like, right. So it's really more about the personality. This one guy was like the sweetest guy in the world, and he was a horrible driver. I do not know who taught him how to drive, but he was just a bad driver.
Not many people are going to put that on the list when they're trying to say the top 10 list of who I want to marry.
It wasn't in my top 10.
It's not even in the top 10, but like, that's an issue.
No, but it was sitting there in my heart. I was like, if my husband's not a good driver, it's not going to work. My father's a very good driver. Yeah. I trust him more than I would trust myself.
But listen, if someone's not a good driver, that means they're not careful with other things in their life. Right? You can't, I mean, like, how can you be a bad driver and really good at, like, cooking and be listening to your wife and doting on her? Like,
there are, again, certain things are learned. Like, there's an intuition, and there's an experience and an emotional level of how we connect with people, and then there's a physical level of how we use our body in the world. And sometimes using our body in the world and our body-brain connection of timing and all of this doesn't work out well, and that we had really bad teachers. Yeah. So you could really still have somebody emotionally balanced who happens to be a bad driver, not like somebody who loves speed. That's different. Right. I'm talking just about somebody who was poorly taught. Yeah, somebody who was poorly taught.
Wow. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but I mean, I could sit here for hours talking to you. I really want to talk to you about how people look when they're dating, how people focus on their looks, and how guys and men and women look at differently when they look at relationships. But
we have to respect your time.
Yeah, we have to respect your time.
We'll make it happen again, because this was great. It would be great to have you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to, first of all, share how people can find out more about you. Again, you can introduce your books and your website.
Amazing. So you can find me at marriagemindedmentor.com. Mm-hmm. My name is Aleeza Ben Shalom with 2 E's. If you Google that, you will find lots of resources and articles and things. And if you go on Amazon, you can find Get Real, Get Married, How to Get Over Your Hurdles and Under the Chuppah, or Virtual Dating if you are looking to date in a socially distanced world and actually get it right.
And we look forward to your book coming out sometime next year.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
One more question that we have to ask is, do you have a key for clarity that you would like to offer our listeners?
I have soulmate clarity. So soulmate clarity is a whole system in terms of like a key for clarity is knowing who you are, knowing your values, knowing personality, fears. We talked about things that bother you and bother other people, and knowing the other person really well. And then aligning those 2 things so that you see if this is like a long-term potential or just one of those short-lived, like, summer lovin', that was great, but you'll never last. Like, this won't work with me. So the key for clarity, I think, is in knowledge and wisdom about ourselves and about the person that we're dating.
So important, so important. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a
pleasure.
privilege.
Unbelievable.
And thank you for watching.
We'll see you next time. Living Clarity Podcast. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Living in Clarity Podcast.
If you enjoy what you just heard, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment with any suggestions for future episodes.
We'll see you next time.